a quick little testimony of how we got into finance, how I got into finance. So, when me and my wife got married, we were in debt. Okay, we were both in debt. I brought my own credit cards and my own debt, and she brought her larger debt into the marriage. So I had two credit cards, and she had like three. However, I was in a bigger mess. Okay, so what happened was we got married in August 2019. Like every new couple, we were making plans, right? We're making plans, and 2020 for us was supposed to be the year of traveling. Okay, that was our goal. Okay, is to travel, to go on another cruise ship, and do all that. And obviously, COVID happened, right? So obviously, because COVID happened, it kind of just derailed everything that we had planned. So we couldn't do a lot of the stuff that we wanted to do. However, it kind of did reveal a lot of things that were wrong, especially with our finances, okay? And the awakening moment for me was where I ignored a credit card and I was like, I'll deal with that later. And I kept saying, I'm gonna do that later, I'm gonna do that later. And then one day I got sued. And a sheriff deputy came into my house, or not into my house, but knocked at my apartment where we were living and served me and said like I had to go to court. And I was like, oh man, that's kind of embarrassing to my new wife, like I supposed to have it all together and I got my place, I got my house, and suddenly I'm being served and I was so embarrassed. I grabbed it. I didn't tell her what it was. I understood what it was. I grabbed it and I just tossed it to the side because I was like, I'm gonna deal with this later, not in front of her. But obviously, her curiosity got to me, and she went and opened it and kind of read the whole thing. And I was like, yeah, this a credit card I'm not paying right now. So, and praise God, we were able to clear that out outside of court and never progress a whole lot. But during that time season as well, Pastor gave us for our wedding gave us the Dave Ramsey financial freedom membership for the year. So during that time, we kind of got a little bit more serious about our finances, and we got a little bit more serious about how do we budget and doing all that. And I'm gonna kind of show you guys just a quick little run through of what his plan is. Now, by the grace of God, and this is all a great testimony to God, and I don't not one that shares a lot of my problems unless I know it's gonna help someone. Like you will never see me on social media crying over anything. However, it's not until afterwards where I feel like, you know what, I could use this for a lesson to help somebody else. Then I will share it. But by the grace of God, we are debt free, except for our house. We're still making house payment, completely house free. Um, there's something special about your car when it's yours, and you're not making payments. So both of my cars are paid off. Both my Honda and my Nissan. No credit card debt. I don't care about your dumb point about in your credit cards. I do not do any credit cards. One of the biggest lies that there is out there is that debit cards do not have the same protection as credit cards. However, that's actually a lie. There's actually our protection. Now, it does take it, but as long as you report it within a good amount of time, usually within 48 hours, they will put the money back in. They'll do an investigation. As long as they know it wasn't you and it was actually fraud, they usually let you keep that money. So we paid everything with credit cards. I mean, with debit cards. Okay, so we don't do any credit cards at all. But now we're gonna be talking about biblical stewardship. Debt and budgeting. How do you manage the both of them? Okay. Now it's kind of living with wisdom, freedom, and having faithfulness. The Bible says the borrower is slave to the lender. Okay, and that's actually very true because there's a lot of people at work right now slaving themselves at work. Why? Because they are living in a house they cannot afford. So therefore, they're taking their mother away from their children to put her in a job to be able to afford their lifestyle. So and now you have two cars. The rates right now. I was listening to a podcast, and this couple was paying. Both of them were in car payments. Were paying up close to $2,000, $1,000 close enough for each car. And now these are not like your Honda Civic. These are suit up like high class cars. But however, that's a lot of money. Okay. Now, whenever because you're in so much debt, this is where you become a slave to your debt. You become a slave to the debtor. No, therefore, you're not going to work. You're going to work not to really provide for your family. You're going to work to pay that car payment. You're going to work to be able to pay that big mortgage. You're going to work to be able to pay all this stuff. Now, you have to work. You have to be able to do those things. But now the purpose of why you're working kind of changed. Now you become a slave rather than an employee. Okay. Now you can't afford not to work. And I know a lot of people are in this same situation. They can't afford not to work. They don't take sick days because they can't afford it. They can't afford for their children to go, miss school because they have to go to work, right? So let's go to the next slide. Now, before we talk about any finances, before we talk about budgeting and how to be a good steward, the main principle here, the foundation of everything, it has to be your tithe. Okay, I would not be able to be in the position that I'm in right now if it wasn't for God's blessing and God's favor. And that blessing is a protection over my life because I put God first in my finances. What does that mean? That when I get paid, and let's just assume I get paid $1,000, I essentially just got paid $900 because $100 automatically goes to God. Okay, it's not it's not if I can afford it. It's not if I don't have anything to do. It is 100%. Everything goes 100% of 10% of everything goes to God. Now why is God commanding tithing? And the reason why God is commanding tithing is to remind us who owns everything. Okay, He owns everything, and yet He's only asking for the tenth. Okay, He's only asking for a small portion. Psalms 24:1 reminds us that the earth is the Lord in all His fullness. Everything in the earth, everything on this world belongs to God. Okay, and tithe kind of reminds us that He is in control of everything. Okay, it also reminds us, it tests us, and it grows our trust. Okay, when you tithe, you're saying, God, I trust you that you're going to take care of me. God, I trust you. However, you could either say, God, I trust you, or say, God, I don't trust you. I'm going to keep my tithe. I'm going to figure it out my own. Right? And that's why even in Malachi, it says, it talks about being cursed because you're not giving your tithe, because you're trusting on yourself and you're trusting on your resources and you're trusting on your material stuff rather than bringing your tithe into the storehouse and saying, God, I trust you that you're going to take care of me. I don't know how this bill is going to get paid. I give him my tithe. I trust you, God. I don't know how I'm going to eat tomorrow, but I trust you, God. I don't know how I'm going to pay for my gas, this high gas prices, but hey, man, I trust you, God. I don't know how you're going to take care of it, but I trust you, God. This is what you're saying. I trust you, God, okay? It's putting your trust not on yourself, but putting it on God. Also establishes your priorities. First fruit, means that God comes first. Okay, so God does not get what's left over. God gets the first, which is the first fruit. That's why when you get paid, the first goes to God. You become a steward of the 90%. God does not become the leftovers. Okay, it is not about whatever. Let me take care of my mortgage, my car payment, my everything else, and if I have money, then I'm gonna go ahead and give it. Okay, establishes your priority. Tithing means I'm gonna put God first. It also breaks the power of money over your life. Okay, and essentially what you're doing with your tithing is you're blessing your money. Okay, when you tithe, you're blessing the 90% that's coming out. That's why people who tend to be great tithers, I don't know if it just feels like your 90 lasts longer than before you were not tithing. Okay, there's a blessing on your tithe when you do so, and therefore you bring those curses. Take heed and beware of covetousness. Okay, therefore it becomes a blessing towards it, and it helps advance the kingdom of God. Understanding where that money is going to go for. Now, when it comes to tithing, my job, my only obligation in Scripture is just to tithe, but it never tells me to question where that money is going. Okay, and the reason why a lot of people don't want to tithe is because, well, what is the church doing with that money? It's none of your business. It's really not. Look, my job is to tithe. Now, if the church is irresponsible with that tithe, that's between them and God. That has nothing to do with me. I've done my part. I have given, right? I'm blessed because of that reason. Now, if the church decides that they're gonna go buy themselves not that this church will, but if the church decides that I'm gonna take that money and buy myself a Lamborghini, hey, that's between you and God, man. You just mismanaged God's money. You're gonna give account for that, but at least from my side, right? Now, obviously, we're in a different type of church. We know that our tithe goes towards the ministry. It helps the pastor. It helps turn on the lights. It helps, pay for all these chairs. It helps a lot here. It helps people. I know that the church has given donations to people who are in need, or have groceries for people in need. And also because we are in a mission-minded church, it goes out to Cuba. It goes out to Dominican Republic. It goes out to other ministries to be able to help all these other ministries. So therefore, our tithe really does help a lot of people. Now, tithe is not paying for God's love. Okay, you're not buying his love. Okay, and you're not going to be guaranteed with wealth. I'm not telling you here that if you give your 10%, you're going to be blessed with $1 million here. Now, you may or you may not. But I'm not going to tell you that because you do, though, you're going to be. I'm not Joel Osteen here telling you that you're going to have your best life now just because you gave your 10%, okay? But I will tell you, you will be blessed. However, a lot of times those blessings doesn't always come in material stuff. It comes with being content, having joy, having comfort, having security, and having trust, knowing that God will take care of it. Now, tithing is an act of obedience. The scripture now, tithe has been around before the law. We saw Abraham tithing, okay? During the law, which is commanded, and even after the law, which is now we're in the period, if you will, of grace. Tithing has always been around through all the scriptures. So therefore, it's an act of obedience, it's an act of faith, and it's a discipline that will shape your life, okay? Because now you're putting your trust on him, you're not trusting on yourself. Let's go to the next slide. Now, God has called his people to live in wisdom, stewardship, contentment, and financial faithfulness, not in financial burden. Like I said, and the borrower is a slave to the lender. Let's go to the next slide. Now, the foundation of biblical stewardship are this. Moreover, it is required in stewardship that one be found faithful. 1 Corinthians 4:2. It is our job to be faithful, and that includes with our finances. Just like I am a steward of my kids are not mine. God has given me these kids. It is my responsibility to raise these kids in the ways of the Lord, because one day, they're going to go back to him, and my job is just to be a steward. And our finances, it kind of works the same way, okay? And the way that it works is that God allows you to have a paycheck, okay? How does he allow you to have a paycheck? It is by his grace and by your strength that you woke up today. It is all because of God. It is because of God that he allows you to have the strength to get out of bed. It is by his strength and his grace and his mercy that you made it to work without getting into a car accident, and then you made it back home. All of that is God's grace upon your life, okay? And the first thing is that God owns everything, okay? And in order for us to be good stewards, we have to understand and know who owns everything. Okay, who owns our finances? It is God who owns our finances, okay? It is the same thing with, between a supervisor and a manager who's running a company, okay? They're not the owners. They don't own nothing. All they do is they're being entrusted by the owner to be able to run this company in order to be effective in the best way possible, okay? You're giving the responsibility to someone else. And therefore, in our finances, it works the same way. God has given you a responsibility to be a good steward of the 90% that he has given you. So we have to learn how to manage it, okay? We manage what God has entrusted us for his own glory, okay? You've been entrusted with this 90%, okay? It is your responsibility, and you have to give an account with how you manage that responsibility. And God desires faithfulness, okay? So therefore, because of it, you have to be faithful with it, okay? How do you become faithful? By being a good steward of it and knowing how to manage it, okay? The problem is that a lot of people tend to do is they tend to not know how to manage that finances, and because they don't know how to manage that finances, they become very irresponsible with it, and therefore they start getting into debt. Debt is a sign that you're not managing God's wealth properly. Okay, it is not that you're not making enough; it's that you're not being a good steward with what you're already making. Okay, it is not that you're not making enough; it's that you're getting into unnecessary debts that are eating what God has already given you. Okay, let's go to the next slide. So, biblical financial principles. First, I God doesn't bless lazy. Get a job, go to work. Okay, daddy and mommy should not be paying for your dates. Okay, mommy and daddy should not be paying for your stuff. Okay, mommy and daddy should not be doing all those things. Let's get a job. We were talking about, me and my wife were talking about dating when it comes to my kids, right? And they were like, "Who are you most worried about, Amelia or Eli?" And I was like, logically, it would be Amelia because she's a girl. But guys are dumb. So I'm more worried about Eli making dumb decisions. I believe that I'm going to raise them well, and I'm going to raise both of them well, and I'm going to raise her to have standards, not to just fall in for any bump, but to have standards to, go for a man of God. But I'm more worried about Eli. And one thing that I was telling my wife, like, look, if I'm still paying his bills, he's not dating. He's not. He's not gonna go on a date. If he's still on my cell phone plan, bro, you're not dating at all. If you're still on my car insurance, and I'm still, if you come to me, if my Eli comes to me and says, "Dad, I really like this girl. Can I have $30?" No, go to get a job. So first of all, is you gotta work. Okay, God has made us to work. Okay, so one thing that you have to do in this biblical financial principles, you gotta get a job. Okay, now there's gonna be a season in your life where you may need to get a second job, especially if you're trying to get out of debt. Maybe you need to do like Uber or Lyft, and we'll talk about a little bit about that later. But when I was getting married and I was trying to save up for my wedding, I did DoorDash just for a little bit because I was like, dude, I need money for my wedding. Weddings are expensive, like unnecessarily expensive. Like, there's no reason why a table cover should cost you $50. They're like $1.99 store. Like, it's completely unnecessary. However, I had to get a second job. So after I was done with my regular job, I will go and deliver food to be able to make an extra income to be able to pay for that wedding. So, but let him who store. Jeez, I need better glasses. Let him who stole steal no longer, but rather let him labor, and that he may have something to give who has a need. Okay, so the first thing you have to do is get a job. Start working. Okay, you can't tithe out of zero. If you're going to tithe, you gotta make something. The other part is you gotta plan wisely. And this is where wisdom comes in. You have to be able to plan. Proverbs teaches us that planning, diligently, and foresight. So budgeting, therefore, is an intentional stewardship that you're trying to do. Okay, it's what you're gonna do with the 90% of the 90% of your income. It's budgeting means that you're being steward and you're being faithful with the rest. Okay, also avoid unnecessary debts. You don't need the brand new car. When a good, decent car that you buy cash will suffice for now. Okay, you don't need another credit card. You don't need that expensive purse. You don't need unnecessary stuff. Now, I am not against buying yourself luxurious stuff. Okay, I'm all for it. As long as you're saving up for it and buying it cash, you want to buy yourself a Gucci purse, go for it. What I'm against it is you put it on a credit card because you couldn't wait to save up for it and you need it now rather than being a good steward and saying, you know what, I'm going to put $10 aside or $20 aside, and then once I accumulate $500, then I'm going to go ahead and buy it. But I'm going to go and buy cash. I worked hard and I'm going to go and do it. I personally, I love toys, okay? I'm a huge fan of toys, okay? Now, if you don't know what toys is, in my world is, and I say toys because I have kids, is your Second Amendment right. Okay, I'm just gonna say that your Second Amendment right. So I love toys, right? I'm a prior military. I fall in love with it. However, none of my toys have ever come out of a credit card. Every single one of them have come in cash wise, where I save up for it, and therefore, when I have the finances to be able to pay for the toy and all the California fees, then I go ahead and go and get it. Okay, but it's so I'm not against buying yourself great stuff. Okay, as long as you do it wisely and you delay your gratification of the now in order for you to be able to get it. Okay, and therefore, because people they want the instant gratification, they put it on a credit card. They don't want to wait to to buy a car. They want the nice car because they want to impress people. And all of this um, unnecessary debt is because you're trying to impress someone. You're trying to keep up with someone. You know, just because they have a nice house doesn't mean that you need the same type of house. Just because they have a brand new car does not mean that you need a brand new car. Just because they have a really nice purse or the really nice shoes or the really nice outfit does not mean that you need exactly the same thing. You don't know how that person got it, and you don't even know how long that person has been saving to be able to get those things. So therefore, you don't know the reasoning, and therefore, because a lot of time people want to keep up with someone, they get into debt. And the other one is practice contentment. You know, a lot of times, instead of worrying about what you don't have, what about being grateful for what you do have? You know, like I may not have the big house, but I have a small little house that my children have a roof over their head. I may not have a Lamborghini, but I have a little Honda HRV that could get me to my work. I may not have all the big luxurious stuff, but I have enough for me to be able to keep my wife at home. Okay, so therefore, practice contentment and being happy with what you have. You know, a lot of times instead of focusing on what other people have and what you don't have, what about thanking God for the life and the air that you have, for the clothing that you have right now, you know, for the car. Instead of saying, "Man, I hate this stupid junk," you know, say, "Thank you, God, thank you for my car," you know, because I'm like, I personally, as a father, and you know, you learn more about God once you become a father than before. However, I appreciate my kids when they're grateful rather than ungrateful. And when they're grateful, it makes me want to buy them more than when they're ungrateful. So therefore, like every time my daughter loves something and she plays with it and takes care of it, like right now she has a tricycle, and she has a tricycle that she's been playing for years, and she had it for years, but because she is so grateful for it, I was like, man, I'm gonna get her a bigger bike because I know she's gonna enjoy it more. I know she's gonna love it more. But it's her gratefulness over the little tricycle that makes me say, you know what, I'm gonna give her more. However, it is so, I mean, she's not perfect. There's times where she's like complains about what she doesn't have and complains because other kids have those things that 50% of the times I don't want to bless her. There's other 50% of the time she gets me her eyes, and she's my little girl, and she gets it anyways. But this contentment, you know, drives overspending, you know, comparison, and financial stress. Um, let's go to the next slide. Okay, so one of the first thing is just really quickly is debt, how to avoid it and how to get out of it. Okay, so debt affects more than finances. It affects your peace. It affects your freedom, and it affects your stewardship. You know, everything about debt is a negative thing because it affects everything about you. There are people who are literally stressed out, can't go to sleep because they don't know how they're gonna pay the bill. They don't know how they're going to be able to afford the next payment, the car payment, everything else. So therefore, because of it, it affects everything about your life and even affects your relationship with God. Because now you're no longer trusting in Him, you're trusting in your worries and you're trusting in how you're going to make the next payment. And therefore, it kind of affects that relationship with God. It affects everything that you do in your life. Now, therefore, now everything in your life is dictated by your debt, and now by your freedom. Now, Jesus died to set us free. And we a lot of time we say that when it comes to sin. But God gave us complete and total freedom from everything. Okay? That means that he doesn't want you to be bound by debt and be enslaved to debt when he already died so you could be completely free from everything. Okay? Because he wants us to freely, this is why the Bible, that's what the scripture in the Old Testament will tell us, that the slave is, the borrower is a slave to the lender. You become yourself, you make yourself, and you willingly make yourself a slave to someone else. And God says, like, nah, I died to help you completely to me. This is why I died, because I want everything from you. I don't want your 60% here, but your 40% is thinking about your dad. Your mind is somewhere else because you're worrying about something else. Like, I was like, no, I want your whole mindset. I want your soul, your spirit, your time. I want everything to come to me. Like, I want everything from you. So therefore, it affects everything. It affects your relationship. It affects your relationship with your, one day when you guys get married, or some of you guys are engaged, it affects your relationship with your spouse. About 60 to 70% of all marriages last year ended because of financial stress. It's because they were arguing more about their finances, and therefore it affects their marriage. Let's go to the next slide. So debt through wisdom and contentment, so many people fall into debt because of impulse buying. I gotta have it now. I want it now. I want that purse. I want that technology. I want that iPad. I want that AirPods. I want that car. I want it now. It is no longer about, hey, let me save up for it. It's I want it now. Comparison, they have it, I need it. Okay? If they could have it, how come I can't have it? I gotta keep up with them. I gotta keep up with my coworkers. I gotta keep up with the people in the church. I gotta keep up with everybody else. And therefore it becomes a comparison. The lack of planning. Not planning wisely with your finances, and wanting a luxurious before the necessity stuff. Wanting to buy yourself a purse, which is like, again, there's nothing wrong with buying yourself a purse as long as you do it wisely. And the other thing is like, we as church, and I understand we should never isolate ourselves. Okay, isolation is the worst thing that we could do in our Christian walk, okay? Because then you lose your fire, you lose your connection and all that. However, it's okay to say no. It's okay to say no, okay? And I know, because I was a young person as well, especially on a Sunday, everybody wants to go out somewhere. Everybody wants to go to In-N-Out. And I've been in that position where I was like, I don't have the finances. Like, I really don't. Like, I really don't have the money to go out with the youth to be able to do it. But however, because I'm the youth director at that time, I have to show up. So what do? I know I don't have the finances, but I swipe my card anyways, knowing that, dude, I don't know how I'm going to pay for my gas. Because now I just spend, back then it was like just $10 for a burger. Now it's probably 20. I don't know how I'm going to do this. Or sometimes what I would do is, knowing that I don't have the finances in my debit card, I will swipe my credit card, knowing that I don't even have the finances to be able to pay that. But because I felt like somewhere like I had to go, that's why it's okay to say no. Like, hey, dude, like, honestly, I would love to go out this Sunday, but I can't. Now, saying that I can't does not mean that you're broke or poor. It means that, hey, right now, I got to be a good steward of my finances. I can't make it this time, but I'll catch you on the next time. I don't get paid until next week. I'll budget it for next week, but this Sunday I just can't. Because let's be honest, In-N-Out turns into afters, and after turns into something else. And now it's not just a $20 burger. It is a $10 ice cream. It is a $10 thing. And therefore, now you're looking at yourself and you're like swiping that card because you don't want to look bad. You don't want to, you don't want people, the church, to think that there's something wrong with you, that you're backsliding, or there's, something going on with you. But sometimes, look, let me tell you this. I'm giving you permission to say, hey, not this time. I'll go next Sunday, but not this time. I'll go next Thursday, but not this time. I get paid next week on next Friday. I'll make sure that when I do my budget, I'm going to allocate a little bit of money for Sunday lunch. I'm going to do it next Sunday, but I just can't do it this time. I got to go home and eat tortillas and with salt and, and that's it. Like that's all I got. Con frijol, and some if you got money like that. So sometimes it's just tortillas and salt, man, and prayer. Or I used to get paid back in the days. I used to get paid once a month. And so on the first, all the money came in, and therefore I wasn't good at budgeting. So by the last week, I was driving by faith and fasting that week. That last week was terrible. And it's all because, not because I didn't make enough, it's because I was very unwise with how I was spending it, okay? So therefore, impulse today is debt tomorrow, long-term satisfaction, long-term stress, and financial bondages. However, you need to have the wisdom today to be able to have the freedom tomorrow, meaning if there's a longer peace, there's financial freedom, and there's faithful stewardship, and therefore you're able to manage your money well. Cody, can we go to the next slide? Now, the biblical stewardship teaches us to count the cost, live within your means and practice contentment and be able to delay gratification. Someone asked in the group chat, how do I practice being a good steward, or how do I become a good steward? This is how you become a good steward. You count the cost. You figured out how much money you have and how much money is going to take to be able to pay the bills, and therefore you live within your means. Meaning that you're not going to buy something you cannot afford. And a lot of times, stores are very good at telling you this is a one-time in a lifetime offer. It is 60% at Bath and Beyond, or no, what is the lotion one? Bath and Body Works. It is 60% off. It has to happen right now. There's cream, there's lotion, there's perfume. It is never going to be available ever again, so you feel like you need to get it now. And therefore, what you're doing, because there is that sale, you need to get it now. Okay? You feel like you need to get it now, and therefore now you're living outside of your means. Okay? Now, just because you could afford the payments does not mean that you could afford the items. Okay? Let me tell you how this works. I want you to think about this for a moment. And this is why I don't like credit cards. I want you to think about how much money do you have in your bank account right now. Ballpark it. Just think about it. You don't have to say it out loud. We might collect an offering for you. Just in your mind, how much money do you have right now? Just ballpark. Doesn't have to be to the cents. It could be $100, $200, $1,000, $2,000, whatever it is. Just think about how much money I have right now. Okay? Now, imagine I just gave you $1,000 cash. $1,000 cash. $1,000. Okay? What are you going to spend your $1,000 in? I said, what would you spend it on right now? I give you $1,000 cash. Be real. Don't be, I'm going to give it to the missionaries. No. Be real. Doesn't matter. It's free money. Do whatever you want with it. Okay, for whatever. What would you spend it on? You what? What is that? Okay, whatever that is. Tessie, what would you spend your money on? Shoes. Okay, you can buy yourself $1,000 worth of shoes. Say this. There you go. What would you spend $1,000 in? Okay, you go out and eat, right? $1,000 worth of food. Why not? That's probably one meal nowadays. Sister, what would you? I'm sorry, I'm really bad with names. Let's see. A whole new closet. All right. Hey, $1,000. Why not? Right? Fredo. Hey, what? Oh, for school. Okay. Parking pass for school. Jackie, what would you spend it on? Universal Studios. We're going on a trip. Now, this girl knows how to live, right? You'll go to Universal Studios. Now, okay, you went to Universal Studios. You bought food. You parking pass, coat closet. You bought some toys. Okay, now, think about this. You spend your whole money. You spend your money right now, right? We all spend the money right now. Did your bank account change? No, right? And that's the power of credit cards. is to make you feel that, hey, it didn't come out, you could go ahead and spend it. However, later on, you're going to get a bill that says, now you open. That's the power of the credit card. It's just say, swipe it, swipe it. Hey, I still got $1,000 in my debit card. Nothing has changed. Swipe it, swipe it. And therefore, it kind of allows you to have your instant gratification now, knowing it doesn't affect your actual debit card or whatever's in your checking account. So this is why, this is the power of credit cards. So don't buy what you cannot afford. Okay, the power of the credit cards. You gotta have it now. You want it now. You have a credit card. Sure, why not? I mean, it's not gonna affect your checking account, so go ahead and do it. So don't buy anything you can't afford. Separate your needs to your wants. There's nothing wrong with with your wants, but however, you need to prioritize what your needs are first before your wants. And pray before making any major purchases. Okay? One of the biggest things that a lot of people do is why people get into a big car debt is because they go into a dealership and they say, sure, I could make that car payment. Instead of saying like, you know what? And I know car sales people are really pushing. I know they'll be like, hey, this is a one-time offer. If you leave, it's not going to happen. Trust me, it's going to happen. They need to sell. So pray before any major purchases, okay? It's saying like, God, I really want this car, or I really want, to have a better affordable car. I need you to provide the finances to be able to do so. Now, God may not give you that dealership car, but it might bring a blessing where someone is selling a car that is reasonably affordable, that runs well for you to be able to pay for that car cash rather than getting into debt, all right? So God understands your needs, and God will provide your needs. But God is not going to provide your needs. He's going to provide what you need. Okay? It's not going to decide, it's not going to give you what you want. It's going to give you what he thinks you need, or he knows that you need. So therefore, pray before any major decision. When you're going to get married, pray about all those decisions. When you go buy a house one day, pray about that decision. When you go get yourself a car, pray about that decision. Pray before you make any other decision. Can we go to the next slide? Now, if you are in debt, debt, freedom requires sacrifice. Okay. Now, for us, when me and the wife were trying to get out of debt, we wouldn't go out to eat on Sundays because all that money was going towards that. Okay. Now, there is a caveat to how during our season, because during our season, it was in 2020. We both were still working. We were blessed with, still having a job in 2020. I know a lot of people got affected with their finances during that time. So for us, it was a lot easier to save up because there was nowhere else to go. It was home all day, right? I was working from home. My wife at that time was working in the medical manufacturing, so she had to go into work because she was essential. I wasn't, so I stayed home. So therefore, it's going to require sacrifice. It may require that you don't go out to eat for a period of time while you're trying to clear your debts. It means that you're not going to buy yourself shoes because you need to clear some debts. It means that, hey, you got to sacrifice your time and go get another job. Sacrifice your pride and go deliver food. Sacrifice something to be able to get yourself out of debt. You have to be able to be consistent. You cannot just pay off a credit card and then use it the next day. You have to be able to be consistent with it. You got to practice patience, and you got to practice self-control. Patience is because, dude, some of these credit cards are really big, and some of them have a really high interest rate, and they take forever to pay off. But this is why you got to be patient. You got to keep digging. You got to keep digging. You got to keep pushing it in order for you to be able to do it. My wife had a credit card debt I don't remember the ratio, but it was something where, like, for every $100 that we gave, 40 was going to the principal, 60 was going to the interest rates. And it just felt like, dude, I kept paying, but the debt was being cut off by small little pieces. So therefore, you gotta be able to practice self-control. And being a steward, faithful steward over time produces great peace. So you have to be able to do those things. Can we go to the next slide? Now, this is not, okay, so the best practical ways towards debt is stop creating new debts. Okay, just stop using your credit card. Okay, literally just stop. Okay. Now I'm not this extreme, but Dave Ramsey recommends, hey, cut it up. Just cut it up. Don't ever use it. Okay. But if you want to get out of debt, you gotta stop creating new debt. Create a written payoff plan. Okay. Cut unnecessary expenses. And hey, this is where the sacrifice comes in. You gotta cut Netflix. You gotta cut your Apple Music. I mean, and this is not just forever. This might not be just a forever thing. It might just be a little season part of your life. That hey, you forget Apple Music, forget all these subscriptions, forget if you have to get rid of Amazon Prime for a bit. Maybe that's the problem. That having it here tomorrow kind of helps out a lot. Increase your income whenever possible. Go get another job and stay faithful even when the progress is low. Can you go to the next slide? So this is not my plan. This is Dave Ramsey's plan. This is plan to kind of help us out, get out of debt. And the first thing is you gotta save $1,000. Okay. Now this $1,000 is not much of a. It's just an emergency fund. Okay. That's just in case you need an oil change, and you gotta get it done now. Instead of putting it in a credit card, you have $1,000 to be able to get yourself $100 worth of oil change. Okay. Or that is if you have your tire just goes bad, you could go somewhere and be able to use this $1,000 to be able to get a new tire. Okay. This is just to kind of help you with small emergencies as you're trying to get out of debt. Okay. So first thing is try to save $1,000, right? That's just to help you, just in case you have any kind of little emergencies that might come up, like your car may break down, little things may come up that you need to clear out. The other one is pay off your debt, okay? And how you do this is by the snowball effect, okay? It's lining up all your bills from the highest to the lowest, and start with the lowest and start paying it off. And we'll go a little bit more in details on the next slide. So the other one is save 3 to 6 months of expenses. Okay, so you gotta what you have to do is you have to figure it out how much you need a month to be able to pay off all your bills. Okay, now let's just assume that you need about $2,000 to be able to pay off your entire bills for that month. Okay, now what you want to do is have 3 to 6 times more than that into your savings account that you're not going to touch, that you're just going to leave there. Okay, that's going to happen just in case you lose your job and you have no income coming in. You have 3 to 6 months to be able to find yourself another job, and therefore you have an emergency savings account just in case something does happen. Okay, so therefore you want to be able to have that pile of money there. This is not money that you're not going to invest this money. You're just going to have it there. If something happens, another COVID situation happens. I know there's something going on with some boats at one time, and everybody was crying. I was already crying, COVID 2.0. But something like that may or may not happen in the future. So therefore, you want to have this savings account to be able to help you just in case you can't go to work and you have no income coming in. At least you're good for 3 to 6 months. Okay, and then you invest 15%. You save for college. That's more like if you have kids. You pay off your home early. That's kind of where we're at right now. And then you build wealth in a year. Okay? So that's kind of like the Dave Ramsey baby steps. But let's go to the next slide. Now, this is how the snowball effect works. List all your debt from smallest to largest. Okay, all of them. Okay, that's your car payments, everything except for your house. Okay, that's your student loans, car payments, credit cards, anything, any debt outside of if you were to own a home. So be able to list them all. And then you make minimum payments on every single one of them. Okay, so you make minimum payments on every single one of them. You don't want to get behind on any of these. And then you're going to attack the smallest payment now. So let's just assume you have 5 credit cards out there, right? You give $20 on each credit card, right? So therefore, you're going to be able to pay off the first one, okay? Now, once you pay off the smallest one, then you're going to take that $20 and you're going to attack the second smallest one with $40 because you're giving 20 to each one. Now you're going to roll over that $20 to the next one. So therefore, all of these other ones are getting 20, while the other smallest one, the next smallest one, they get 40. So you start attacking that debt, okay? Once you start attacking that debt, you take that $40 and you apply it on the next one. Now, on the next one, you'll be giving out $60, right? So now you're making larger payments. And then so on and so forth until you're able to clear every single one of them. Trust me, it works, and that's the way that we did it. That's the way where we lined everything up. We made the minimum payments on a handful of credit cards, and we just started attacking the smallest one. We got rid of that one, and it kind of creates little winning momentums, knowing that, like, man, praise God, I paid the smallest one, so let's go with the other one. Praise God, now I got the other smallest one, and that's praise God, and it kind of builds momentum, and it kind of gets you going, it gets you motivated, and this is why you don't want to start with a big one, because the big one is going to take you sometimes a year or two. And by that time, you're going to lose momentum, you're going to lose motivation, you're going to give up, and you say, hey, this is not going to work. This is why you go with the smallest one. So momentum builds motivation, and this is how you want to do it. Be able to go with the smallest one to the biggest one. Let's go to the next slide. So budgeting is a biblical plan for stewardship. Now, let me ask you something. When you hear the word budget, what comes to mind? What comes to mind when you hear the word budget? Putting aside money. What comes to mind? Does that word kind of feel restrictive? Like you can't do nothing? Like you're not allowed to go out? Unfortunately, it may feel stress, overwhelmed, restrictive, and for some of us it may be a little bit hopeful. But the word budget kind of has the world has given it like a bad word, a bad meaning behind it. When you hear budget, it means what you cannot do, right? It kind of feels like a lot of times in our Christian faith we focus more on what we can do rather than what we can do. Okay, like you're allowed to have a lot of freedom within boundaries. But sometimes, even in our Christian faith, we feel like, oh man, but look what they're doing over there, right? So, however, budget kind of gives us the same feeling, but when it comes to our finances, because it feels like, well, I can't do it because I have a budget now. Or I can't do that because I have a budget now. So therefore, let's go to the next slide. So therefore, budgeting is giving money a purpose. Okay, so what you're gonna do is whenever you put money, you create a budget. You're going to give every money a purpose. Okay, so when you get your paycheck after you have given your tithe, you're going to be able to align everything accordingly and be able to give every dollar a name. Meaning, from this paycheck, I'm going to tithe. From this paycheck, I'm going to pay my mortgage or my rent. From this paycheck, I'm going to make my car payment. From this paycheck, I'm going to go out to eat. From this paycheck, I'm going to, pay my subscription. So what you're doing is when you're getting your money, you're giving every dollar a name. It's saying this money is going to go somewhere. This money is going to go for savings. And therefore, whatever's left over, we call it miscellaneous, which means that just free bucket of money there that kind of helps us with everything that we need, okay? These are miscellaneous stuff, okay? So that means that since I have everything lined up and we're, running around doing errands and the wife wants, In-N-Out, I don't have to worry about it. I know I have a miscellaneous bucket here where I could dip into and be able to pay for that In-N-Out. It helps family plans wisely and prevents waste, and it creates peace and clarity whenever you create a budget. The budget kind of helps you. It kind of gives you freedom to understand what you can and cannot buy. And it gives you the freedom to understand how much money you can spend. In our budget, Eli and Amelia and my wife and I, we all have a budget within our budgeting system, okay? So therefore, because we have a budget, it gives my wife the freedom to be able to buy something for the kids, knowing that they have money already allocated to them, okay? So therefore, when she goes to Aldi, and Aldi has its great Aldi finds, especially for kids, she's able to go to Aldi and she says, you know what, I really like this dress, or I really like the shoes, or I really like this toy for my kid. It gives her the freedom to grab it, pay for it, knowing that there's money already allocated for them. Now, she has to stay within that bucket, though. She can't, if my kids only have $100 in our budget, she can't be spending $200. So she understands she only has $100. So therefore, if she goes to the store and sees something for $10, it gives us the freedom to know I could get this, knowing that it's not going to affect our mortgage, knowing that it's not going to affect gas, knowing that it's not going to affect food. Therefore, because we have given every dollar and everything in our budgeting system a name, it gives you the freedom to be able to make those purchases. You don't have to worry about whether or not there's money in the bank. Okay. Now, it has not always been that way. There's times when she wanted to buy something for Amelia, but we just didn't have the finances. And you know what? Those are times that you say, hey, we can't afford it right now. Okay. And this is where it is important to be able to have a budget. I have been around couples who I'm nosy, so I hear things, okay? So I heard this couple say, do we have money in this credit card and this debit card? No, I think we have money on this other one. Oh, which one is it? I don't know. Just swipe one. Let's find out. And I was like, dude, like, in my mind, I was looking at my wife like, dude, we might be needing to cover their bill too. I was like, dude, like, but like that's an example of like not knowing how much money you have and not planning wisely and not knowing how much you have. Now, for us, every time we budget, I budget within because I get paid every 2 weeks now. So I budget within 2 weeks. So on a Sunday, when we come to church, we have a budget called Sunday lunch. So therefore, every time we go out to eat, I don't have to worry about anything else. I know I have money allocated to be able to eat on Sundays. So therefore, you want to make sure that you're able to create, and it kind of gives you that peace, it gives you that clarity, knowing that you have all your finances in order and you're able to make that payments. Can we go to the next slide? So now there's a budgeting application. Now I'm not. It's hard to be able to help you create a budget right now. Okay, but I'm going to give you principles on how to create your own budget. Okay. Now you can use Excel. There's a lot of apps. If you guys want, I could show you what I use to be able. I use an app called Checkbook to be able to make my budget, and I have a spreadsheet. Now, if I were to ask you where Disneyland is at, would you be able to tell me? Okay. Now, where's Disneyland? The city. Anaheim, right? Okay. Now, that's equivalent to your monthly budget, right? It's like if you want to go to Disneyland, you know where's it at. It's in Anaheim, right? So therefore, you kind of know the end goal of everything. That's your monthly budget. Can you give me directions how to get there? Like from this church to Disneyland, what street do I take? What freeway do I? Where do I get into freeway? What way do I get out to be able to do that? Most of us may not, right? However, the problem with a monthly budget is good. However, it doesn't give you directions how to get there. Okay, because most of us now monthly budget works if you get paid once a month. Okay, now that works, right? You get paid once a month, you have a monthly budget, you're able to allocate money for the rest of the month. It works. Most of us get paid bi-weekly. Okay, so it's hard to establish a monthly budget when you get two paychecks in a month. Okay, so now you gotta find a way to be able to break it down, right? Between for us is you take half of the mortgage on one paycheck and you take the other half of the mortgage on the other paycheck, and therefore you already have your mortgage for the next month, right? So, but these are practical budgeting habits. It's write down every dollar, write down every dollar down, be intentional every dollar, and with a purpose. That means that you're going to write everything down to the nearest cent. So you're not going to be like, well, I think it's $200. Not like literally go into your statement and figure it out how much money how much payment, how much is your car payment, or how much is your bill, how much is your thing. Like be intentional with it, okay? Don't ballpark it. Be as accurate as possible, okay? Track spending. Track spending monthly. Track every dollar that comes in. Okay. Now I don't like to link in my app to my bank account because it kind of creates that credit card effect where you swiped, but there's no revision of what's being spent. So I do manually. I open I go to the website. I open my bank account. I am with my app, and I'm adding things manually. And what that does, it allows me to be more aware of where the money's going. Okay, and that kind of helps a lot too. Where just in case there's a fraud thing that's going on and there's a transaction, and trust me, this has been a lot of times. I'm like, go to my wife and be like, do you know what this is? And then, try to figure that out. So budget before the monthly begins, and stewardship resources with intentional. Let's go to the next slide. Here are some principles that on how to build your house, okay? Your financial house, okay? This is your financial house. Is first, how we mentioned in the beginning, you gotta tithe. That is your roof. That is your protection, okay? This roof right here, if it were to rain, this is our protection, okay? If wind comes, this is our protection, okay? If something like something were to fall in here, this is our first protection. When it comes to your finances, your tithe and God's blessing, it is the protection over your finances, okay? It is a protection over your home. So the first thing you want to do is you want to take care of your roof, okay? You want to be able to tithe because you're saying, I trust you, God, and God is going to take care of you, okay? And kind of reminds us that God is our provider, money is just a tool, and stewardship begins with worship. Everything is God's protection over your house, okay? So next slide. The next one is your 4 walls of priorities, okay? After you take care of your tithe, you're going to take care of these other 4 things, okay? And the first thing, you're going to take care of these 4 things, okay? Now, 1 Timothy 5:8 says, but if anyone does not provide for his relatives, and especially members of his household, he has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever, okay? Now, you got to remember, though, back then, everybody lived together. Okay, there were Mexicans, everybody in one house, okay? Everybody, so when it talks about relative, it's not talking about someone that lives far away. They were talking about relatives that live within the same household, okay? It's everybody lives the same. So therefore, you're going to take care of you first and nobody else, okay? You got to take care of your needs before anybody else. You're going to tithe, and then it's all about you, okay? It is nobody else. Okay, I have heard people get into debt and not have money because you have paid someone else's rent when you have your own rent that is due. Okay, and the Bible says if you don't take care of your people in your own household, you're worse than an unbeliever. You have a responsibility to take care of your needs first. I know it sounds selfish, but you got to take care of you. How can you be a blessing to someone else if you can't take care of yourself? This is why when you're in an airplane, they say, put your oxygen mask first before you take care of your kids. Because if you take care of them, you might pass out because you did not get the oxygen that you need, all right? So therefore, you got to take care of you first, okay? And take care of your household. Meaning that if someone has a need in the church and I can't help them because I got a rent to be paid, I'm sorry, bro, I can't do it this time. I just can't, all right? I got to take care of my house first. I'm not going to take food from my kids to be able to give you food, okay? Now, there are times where, especially now that we are able to clear all this debt, that we're able to be a blessing to someone. We're able to provide for someone. We're able to, we don't do checks anymore. We do Zelle. So we do Zelle someone to be able to be a blessing to someone. Now, we could do that now, but back then when we're trying to get out of debt, even now, I got to take care of my family first. Okay, as a steward of my family, it's my responsibility to take care of my family first, okay? So protect your family first, okay? I know a lot of us have family members. I know in the Hispanic community, we're all there to help our uncles and our cousins and all that, but you got to take care of you first. Let's go to the next slide. So here are your 4 walls. It's first, you got to take care of your shelter, okay? Now, if you live with your parents, praise God, pay rent, it'll be a blessing for your parents, right? Be able to provide for that. That'd be rent, that'd be mortgage, that would be your house insurance, and especially if you own a home, you gotta take care of your shelter first. So the first thing that's gonna come out of your paycheck is your either all of it or portion of it for your mortgage. Okay, you gotta take care of your mortgage first. Second, you gotta eat. Okay, like this. I mean, I know about y'all. I ain't Jesus. I am not fasting for that many days. So I just can't. I gotta eat. So, so you gotta take care of your food. That means that you're going to take on your groceries before you think about any other luxury stuff. You're gonna take care of your food. So, the other thing you're gonna do in your monthly budget or your weekly budget is to be able to take care of your food. The other one is utilities, right? The lights have to turn on. The gas has to turn on. I don't know about y'all, but I don't like taking cold showers. So the gas bill has to get paid, right? You gotta take care of you like cold showers? Oh, dude, I tried it and it's not gonna work. So I know there's benefits, there's health benefits to it, but it's cold, bro. Take care of your electricity, take care of your water, take care of your essential necessities. Be able to take care of everything. It doesn't make any sense for you not to be able to pay your light bill because you gave your money away. Okay, so take care of your utilities. So the next thing that's going to happen is you're going to take care of your utilities, and you got to be wise with your utilities because sometimes in the summers your AC, because your AC is on more in the summer, your light is going to go up on the summers rather than the winter. So you got to take care of your utilities, and the other one is you got to take care of your transportation. Okay, now that means that you're going to take care of your gas, you're going to take care of your maintenance, you're going to work, any type of transportation that you take to work. It could be Uber, if that's your way of transportation, and maybe the bus, and maybe whatever it is. But you're going to take care of your transportation. So therefore, those are the five things that need to come out of your budget first. That's first on the list: your tithe, your shelter, your food, your utilities, and your transportation. Okay, you got to get to work. All right, so that means if it's not gas, you gotta get yourself a little bus ticket to be able to get to work. All right, you gotta get yourself to work. You gotta turn on the light. You gotta be able to provide food for yourself and your family, and you gotta be able to take care of your shelter. Okay, these are the four foundational walls that you want to do every time you do a budget. These are the five first things that comes whenever you do a budget. Can you go to the next slide? So now, budget with a purpose, not with pressure. Okay, so a budget should reflect God priorities. We honor God first with our money. Your family needs. We provide for today with love and responsibility. Future wisdom. We plan ahead and prepare for tomorrow, and then you're able to give and be able to bless other people. Okay, but you gotta be able to budget with a purpose. In our budget, there's a savings account, and then we call it a giving account. Okay, these are finances that we use to be able to bless someone. A lot of times that's the juniors, and to be able to help the juniors right now. But we always try to allocate our money to be able to give outside of just our tithe. Our tithe is obligation. It's a command, but now we're talking about offering, to be able to offer to something. That's when pastors asking money for Cuba. That's pastors asking money for Dominican Republic, or you see someone in the church who's struggling financially. It may not always be money, but what we have done is we have gathered some food, and we have given someone food privately so they don't feel embarrassed. So we have given food to someone so they can have food to be able to eat. So therefore, this is the part where you be able to give joyfully to be able to bless others. And that's something that should be also included in your budget. It doesn't have to be a lot, but I always want to encourage people to be able to have a little money that they could give to someone else. Go to the next slide. And this is just personal questions that I give this lesson to my friends group. So these are personal reflecting questions. We don't have to answer them. But does my spending reflect my values? Am I honoring God with my finances? Am I preparing wisely for the future? Am I living for needs, or am I living for appearances? Like, am I living to be able to impress someone? And these are just kind of reflecting questions that we ourselves need to be asking ourselves. Now, I know some of you guys submitted some questions. We got like 4 minutes here. So I'm going to answer a few of these questions that some of y'all, if I don't get to you, I'm sorry. Let me just try to figure this out real quick. So some of you guys did ask some questions, and I'm going to point a few of them. Some of these we kind of already covered in here. But one thing, and just I'm going to share this one because I know some of you guys are engaged, or some of you guys will be engaged, and some of you guys are dating or all that. Is should a couple have separate checking and savings accounts? And the answer is no. A house that is divided will not prosper. Okay? The Bible says that when you get married, you become one flesh. You're one. So essentially, it is no longer my money, it is our money. It is not my house, it's our house. It is not, even now when I personally, I'm the only one that works, but even me working and my wife staying at home, this is not my money, this is our money. Okay? And therefore, what happens is, if you start separating everything, what's going to happen is you're going to work towards one goal, and she's going to work towards a different goal. and therefore you're going to be divided on your goals. However, when you combine your income, you're going to be working towards one goal. The reason why we are able to afford a house is because we work towards one goal. The reason why we got out of debt is because we had one income. We work towards one goal. So everything that we do it together, including our finances. Okay, so it's no longer even with me not working, even with her not working and me working, it is still not my money. It's our money. Okay, I wouldn't be able to go to work peacefully if she wasn't home taking care of the kids. Okay, so when I get out of my house to be able to go to work, I don't have to worry about my kids. They're with their mom. They're okay. Okay, so it kind of gives me the freedom to be able to focus more on my job. Now, I've been in position where I had I think Sayla helped us with Amelia one time. But even with people that you trust, you're like, man, I hope Amelia's okay. Hopefully Amelia's okay. Hopefully nothing's wrong. Hopefully I hated that feeling. So when we had our son, we decided, hey, no more. However, and the other thing is, my wife is 1,000% included in all our finances. Okay, so therefore I create the budget, she approves it. Okay, so every time I do the budget, I always show it to her and be like, hey, this is where we're at this month. Okay, and she reviews it, and sometimes she may bring something up that I kind of forgot. Sometimes since we plan ahead, if we were to go to a birthday party this Sunday for a kid's birthday party, and I did not budget that into our finances, I make sure that I budget it, right? So, but every time, the Bible says the two will become one flesh, and a house that is divided will not prosper. So therefore, checking account, savings account, all kind of finances together under both of you guys' names. Cars under both of you guys' name. The house under both of you guys' name. Everything now becomes not a my, but a ours, okay? Even if you bought in that car into the marriage, now it's our car, okay? It means I have a key, she has a key, okay? Our house, same thing, we both have keys. Everything in our lives, it is a lot about ours, and therefore we're able to accomplish a lot more things because we're working together, especially in our finances. And it kind of reduces stress and everything. So, I know there was one other one. Okay, how do I become more financially responsible and break previous spending habits? Okay, I know some of us, they get credit card happy and they start swiping. The best way to be able to break those habits is by having an accountability partner that you could have to help you with that area. It's kind of like the same thing when it comes to like if you're dealing with a sin that you're working through. It's always good to have someone else kind of help you, keep you accountable. It is the same idea when it comes. You want to be able to get someone who's mature that kind of helps you stay accountable. Now, to us, I mean, if you're dating, maybe that could be that person. If you're not dating, it could be a sister in the church or a brother in the church, male with male, female with female. To be able to do someone that you could trust with your finances, somebody that's not gonna go out there and be like, man, she's broke. So someone who you trust that's not gonna go and tell people your finances. But having an accountability partner to be able to help you through those things, kind of like walk you through those things. But that's, and through prayer and asking God to help you break those habits. But outside of prayer, be able to do that things. How do you delay gratification in your finances? Ask yourself this: why are you buying it? What's the real reason why you're buying it? A lot of times it's because we saw someone else have it, so you don't need it. So asking yourself, why are you buying what you're buying? Okay, like I said, there's nothing wrong with buying things. Is you gotta understand that if you save up for it, and you want that purse that is $1,000, and you saved up for a whole year to go get the purse, you got my blessing. Go buy it. You saved up. You worked an extra shift to be able to buy yourself that purse. Go for it. I'm okay with it. It's terrible when you put it into your debt into your credit card because you want it now. It's terrible whenever you can't afford your rent because you bought this purse, or you can't afford food because you bought this purse. That's where the problem lays. Okay, so there's nothing wrong with buying yourself nice things. Is you got to do it wisely and with great stewardship with our finances. God gives us our finances to be able to take care of our needs, to be able to save, to be able to be a blessing. But He also gives us the finances for us to be able to enjoy those things. Okay, to be able to enjoy our finances. Um, this is like a weird one. I'll answer it. Um, okay, so how do you manage your expenses when it comes to getting married? It's starting. Not that, that's not the weird one. The other one is the weird one. I'll get to the weird one later. How do you manage your expenses when it comes to getting married and starting a new life? It's kind of reflects on the other question. Um, just like how our money now is our debt. Okay, when you walk into debt with that, when you walk into marriage with that debt, now is our debt. This is why even when you're getting married, when you're dating, you kind of want to find out like what are their financial situation. Like dude, like I know people who look. My sister, I love this girl. She's like literally my favorite sister. But she's an overspender. Now my brother-in-law and her, they both have amazing jobs, okay? They have high-paying jobs, okay? I told my sister, let's go to Disneyland, let's take the kids, right? She said, yes, let's do it. Cool. Anaheim, I could do it. Well, just give me some time, I'll save up some money. Eli's free, and I only have to pay for Amelia. She said, nah, it's ghetto. We're gonna go to Florida. I'm like, girl, can't afford Florida money. You're tripping. I'm not gonna do that. I'll go to Anaheim. I'm not gonna go to Florida for a week. Who goes to Disneyland for a week? Um, but however, um, so we didn't go. Okay, can't afford that. Plans were canceled. But however, when it comes to our finances, everything becomes ours, the goods and the bad. Okay, that means your debt becomes ours. So therefore, you gotta tackle those debts together. Everything you gotta, what you have to do is, and I think it might be a part of your marriage classes, is you gotta line up your finances. She has to line up her finances, and now you gotta like, and your income and everything, and now you gotta put it together and figure it out like, hey, her debt or my debt now. Her bills is my bill. Her car payment is my car payment. And this is where it comes to like combining your finances because now everything becomes ours, okay? And therefore, because everything becomes ours, now you're able to work together to try to clear their debts, try to pay off the car payment, be able to pay off certain things to be able to have that financial freedom to be able to do so. How do you do it together? You write it up and you say, this is ours, okay? And we got to figure this out together. Okay, it is not, well, that's her dad because she brought it into the marriage. You marry the girl and you got everything. You married the guy and you got everything. Okay, it is no longer I'm one flesh. I don't have an arm over there. Okay, same thing when it comes to marriage. It's one flesh. You're one. Her problems are not your problems, and your problems are not her problems. And now you got to work on this together. The other one that was a little different, but I think it kind of helps. But should a young person consider investing into properties? I'm assuming real estate. Um, my rule of thumb with everything is become a student before you put money into it. Okay, so learn before you start putting money into real estate or anything, even stocks or any kind of investment. Become a student of it, okay? So therefore, go hang out with some realtors to be able to understand the market and understand everything before you get into it. What's happening right now, especially why people are getting into a lot of debt, is because they see a TikTok guy talking about like, hey, this is how I got rich, or this is how I make money, this is how I start working, and they kind of try to sell their programs, and therefore people start investing or buying those programs and try to go that route, not understanding what they're getting themselves into, and not understanding what they're doing, and therefore they end up in more debt than what they were before they even started. So become a student of anything. That could be even the stock market. Understand how the market works, and understand what you're going to do with it. Real estate, understand what you're going to do with it. Become a student of it before you become an investor in it. Okay, understand and know what you're talking about. Okay, don't do it just because a TikTok guy told you that that was the way that they did it. And most of the time, that's false. Or a lot of times, they're just trying to sell you their program, so they're overplaying or overshowing what they have in order for you to buy their program. So really, their money is being made not by the real estate; it's made by the program that they're trying to sell you. I think we talked about a lot of these stuff. There was another one. Um, I, what is the best tip to find a job? Apply. That's pretty much my best tip. Apply. That's it. That's honestly, when I read this, I was like, I don't know what else to say, but apply. Like that's it. Like I honestly, I guess you could kind of say network, get to know people, and just uh, okay. This is weird. Don't judge me for this. So one time, some person told me this, and it's weird. I understand. This is super weird. Okay, they told me that job hunting is like dating. You gotta tell that girl what she wants to hear, and not the truth. Okay. For example, let's say you're trying to talk to someone, and this is why. And so therefore, when you go apply to someone, like you wouldn't submit the same resume at McDonald's than you would for the county, right? You modify the resume accordingly, right? So therefore, the guy told me this, like, look, when you're trying to date a girl and you really want her to fall in love with you and you really want her, is you agree with everything, okay? Whatever she wants, you want, okay? And therefore, a company will tell you, hey, this is what we want, okay? We want somebody with these qualifications. Okay, so therefore on your resume, you gotta point out those qualifications so your resume stands out and kind of aligns with the posting, right? So if you're trying to date a girl and she says, like, let's say I just want one kid and that's all I want. But a girl says, I'm trying to date this girl, and this girl tells me, man, I want 6 kids. You're like, yeah, me too. You want 2 kids? I want 6 kids. You want to live in the woods? Me too. Like that's what I want, right? Like you tell them what they want to hear. Like you want this? Me too. That's what I want. Like dude, we have so much in common. Like who knew? Right? Like you tell them what you want to do. Okay, it's kind of like dating. You tell them what they want to do. So it is the same thing with job hunting. You tell them what they want to hear. Okay, you tell them like, hey, you're looking for this a person that has this qualification. Guess what? I have this qualification too, and here's my resume, and this is how much experience I have with it. You kind of tell them what to do. So every job posting, your resume should be tweaked a little differently because you want to make sure, especially nowadays with AI. What happens is before a person sees your resume, it's run through an AI. And what this AI does is try to pick up keywords. Okay, so if you're trying to apply to be a buyer for the county, you gotta add words like procurement, contract, RFQs, and all that. So the AI picks up those words, stands it out, and therefore an HR person can actually read it. Because HR people, they don't got time to go through thousands and thousands of resumes. They do everything through an AI. They pick out a handful that stood out through the computer, and therefore they start calling those people for interviews. So therefore, every time you go see a posting, look at your resumes and try to add keywords in order for it to stand out. So that's kind of how you apply to the job. You just look for what they're looking for and modify your resume to kind of reflect what they're looking for you to be able to have a better chance to be able to get that resume. But it's kind of like dating. That's how someone, it's weird, it's super weird, but that's how someone explained it to me. And there was another one that I thought it was very interesting. Um, oh, how did you get? I don't know if this. I don't know. I don't know if they knew I was gonna come or this was a generic one. But how did you get? How did you get your start in your career? And what did you do to stand out? And how did you grow? Okay, I guess it's more a career question. I got my start in my career, dude. I was working in Chino, pushing boxes, and my how I got started. I got curious, and I wanted to learn more about finances. So one of my first book was finances, import and export, because we did a lot of import and exporting. Import and exports for dummies. You know, the yellow book. That's what I read. Okay, I didn't like reading, but it helped me understand. And because I educated myself at least with that book, I was able to transfer that education or that knowledge into my job. And how do I advance? You got to give your 110% more. You got to do more. Okay, that's what the Bible says. You know, do it as unto the Lord. You know, work as kind of like work is if Jesus was your boss. Okay, that means that every project that you have, you're going to do extra. You're going to do more. One of the big advice that Pastor gave me was, um, he said that a servant that does what it is told to do is useless because you were just told to do what you were told to. You did what you were told to do. That's it. You were useless. But a servant who does more becomes fruitful and profitable to the master. Okay, and it's the same idea when it comes to your job. When you go to your job, don't just do what you're told. Do more than what you're told. You know, and this is where biblically it talks about like if somebody tells you to go 1 mile, go 2 miles. Somebody ask you for one thing, God, give him more. And always be willing to learn. One of the things that I always see when it comes to new employees that come into different job sites, and the reason why, well, I'm blessed because of God. However, I'm also blessed because every time I go to work, it is all about my job. It's all about giving my 110%, always trying to learn, and always being willing to take criticism, and always trying to learn to do better next time. Okay. And that's why a lot of people in their job site, they get stuck because they can't take criticisms. They can't take constructive criticism. So therefore, they always stay at the same level because no one can invest in you. I had great bosses. I have, Jennifer at Lucent, who have given me a lot of opportunities. She was in my wedding, not in my wedding, but she was invited in my wedding. At the shelter, I have Ellie, who have always invested in providing me with so much knowledge. And this is why I'm with the county purchasing, and I'm with the district attorneys, Riverside district attorneys, because every single step and every job that I've always been in, I always gave my best. I always went in with a humble heart to learn, and always was open to get criticisms in order to improve myself to do better. And that's how you advance in anything, even in the church. This is how I advanced from sitting there to becoming a minister. It's like how to go through a lot of learning process in order for me to be better, and telling my pastor, hey, you could speak into my life. And I'm gonna be honest, in my job and even in church, I didn't always agree, and sometimes I was upset, but I always said, hey, if this is gonna help me to be better, I'm gonna take it, I'm gonna learn from it, and I'm gonna keep growing to be better. Okay, but that's the key to be able to advance in this place, to be able to get that next promotion. I've been a manager. I always looked for someone who was always willing to learn. Okay, I always avoided the know-it-all or the content person, the person that's like, I'm just content. And, I guess in a sense, not everybody could be a manager, so we do need some people that are content with what they do. Some people are content with being a secretary. That's what they want to do, that's fine. But if you're trying to strive to do greater things, find yourself a mentor. It could be your manager, it could be your supervisor, it could be an employee, another coworker that's able to invest in you, and you'll be able to learn from them. But be wise, because there's certain people that have been there for in your job that have been so long, they complain more, and they'll be no useful for you. So always be wise with who you allow yourself to speak to, even in the church. We got grumpy Christians in the church. Like, be wise with who you take advice from, because not everybody has your best interest as mind. Okay? Any other questions, concerns, comments, anything that somebody may have before we dismiss? No? I know I didn't get to all the questions, but I think some of